Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome again to the latest in our live web chats from around the world. On behalf of Warwickshire County Cricket Club, a very warm welcome, and hope you're all keeping safe and well. And welcome again. Thank you to all of you for joining us and also for sending us your questions, which today are for our guest who joins us from Dubai, Dougie Brown, Bears legend. Dougie, how are you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Brian. Evening, everybody. Hope everybody's safe and well. We're doing really well. Yeah, it's starting to get quite warm here at the minute, which is, it's what was it? Still 32, 33 degrees at the minute. I believe it's the same kind of temperature in the UK at the moment, which is great. It's just a shame there's no cricket to be on the back of the lovely temperatures that are around at the moment.
Yes, you would have played in plenty of Aprils and Mays when you needed 9 sweaters on, weren't you? Unfortunately, we've had a great spring and no cricket.
Yeah, well, it's always the way, isn't it? But hopefully it'll be back. It'll be back pretty soon and some light at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely. Now, Dougie, we've got lots of questions from members. They're a very diverse and interesting bunch of questions, just like they're a diverse and interesting bunch of members. So you might get anything at any time.
Bring it on. I'm happy to answer.
Let's start off with one from Ian Venables. Ian, thank you very much for the question, which is, Dougie, you played the whole of your county career from 1992 to 2007 at Warwickshire. Can you just run us through how you began playing for the Bears and how you came to be signed for the county?
Of course, yeah. Hi, Ian. How are you doing? Hope you're well. Actually, I need to pick you up on that. It was actually from 1989 until I finished. In 2007. But so I was playing cricket in central Scotland, and I was working in a bank after I left school because I didn't really know what else to do. So I was working in a bank in my hometown, and what I really wanted to do was play cricket. So I went to study PE down in London. I thought, well, okay, if I don't want to work in a bank for sure, if cricket doesn't actually make a decent fist of it, then at least I can be a PE teacher, which I would love to be. But I thought going to London was a pretty good starting point to try and make a bit of a break in the game, if you like. So I went down there in 1988, and I left a sleepy little town in central Scotland, went to London, and I was travelling backwards and forwards to Scotland overnight on the bus to play cricket the next day for my club side, with a view to try and get into the Scotland side, which would then allow me to play against potentially county sides, etc., etc. So that was what I was doing, and it was really hard. Overnight on a Friday night, play cricket on a Saturday, Sunday, and then overnight Sunday straight to lecture on Monday morning. That was really tough, but it was worthwhile because in 1989 I actually wrote to 2 counties and asked if I might be so brazen as to ask for a trial. One of them was Leicestershire, and they wrote back and said thanks but no thanks, which is great. And the other one was Warwickshire, and I wrote to Bob Cottam and Neil Aberley, God rest his soul. He actually picked up the communication and invited me down to Warwickshire. And I came down and trialled with, I think there was about 13 or 14 other guys. Honestly, these guys were like the best players I'd ever seen in the world at that moment in time. And I was somebody who just was as rough as anything, just kind of charged in and bold and loved what I was doing and tried to showcase myself as best as I could. But on the back of that, I got invited back down again to come down, and there was 3 of us, myself and 2 other guys. So I went through another trial, and again, this time I was trialing with the contracted players, and clearly there was something that Abbers and Bob Cottam saw in what I was doing, and I got invited down to play a second team game against Leicestershire. So I played a second team game. I did quite well. I got 4 wickets in the first innings, 2 in the second, and then I went back up to Scotland again, and I got a phone call a couple of days later, just saying that they would like to offer me a summer contract for the remainder of the season. So that was this was probably early June, and I got a contract. And I remember I was getting paid £130 a week to be a professional cricketer for the weeks until the end of the season. but I was actually working as a drayman in the local brewery in Alloa, and I was getting paid £220 a week. But to be fair, it wasn't even a contest. It was like, yeah, okay, I'm going to jump at that because that's exactly what I wanted to do. And that was 1989.
How come Warwickshire were one of the two you picked out then, Dougie? How come you picked on Warwickshire and Leicestershire? Because
at the club I played at was Clackmannan County. There was a player there, a guy there who was head of coach education in Scotland, a guy called David Wilson. So Fudge Wilson, and he played for Moseley. And if you spoke to him, he was the best player ever played. I don't think he was, but actually that's part of the nice thing about it. But he knew Cott and he knew Abbers, and he also knew Ken Higgs at Leicestershire, and he suggested that I write to both Warwickshire and Leicestershire because he knew the people there, and he thought that might be a bit of an in for me, which obviously it wasn't at Leicestershire and it was at Warwickshire.
Well, I think everyone at Warwickshire is glad that Leicestershire didn't take you up on that anyway, Dougie. Next question is from Ken Mackay. Apart from Edgbaston, as a player, what was your favourite ground that you enjoyed playing at?
Lords, without a shadow. Hi, Ken. How are you? Yeah. Do you know what? Lords was amazing, but I didn't have a ground that I really prefer. Lords was Lords, and I think you need to sort of look away and any ground away from the UK, because it's something pretty special when you get a chance to play cricket and do something that you would do for nothing around the world. It's a pretty special thing, and you're playing at places like Newlands or wherever it is you're playing. It's an amazing experience for a player. I honestly didn't have a favourite ground in the UK. I just loved playing cricket, and it didn't really matter whether it was Grace Road, Derby, Lords or the Oval. I just enjoyed every single bit of it. Obviously, Edgbaston is very special, so I'm not really answering the question, but Lords is a phenomenal place, and I think as a player, even as a spectator, if you go there, you know it's an incredible experience, and I think that resonates with everybody who loves cricket. So Lords, it has to be away from Edgbaston, but all of them, to be honest.
I totally get what you're saying, because any cricket ground is not a bad office for a couple of days, is it, or whatever. But next on to Carl Jordan. Carl sent a few questions. Thank you very much, Carl. First up, Dougie, this might be one to stretch you a bit. What is your most memorable batting and bowling performance for Warwickshire? The few to choose.
Okay, most memorable batting performance. Actually, it was against Yorkshire, and we were struggling. It was I'm trying to think the year. I think it was 1996, and we were struggling. We were chasing a pretty low total, and we were 6 down. I think I was batting at 7, and Ash came in to bat at number 8, and they had Gough, they had White, they had Silverwood, and it was at Edgbaston. It was kind of dark, overcast. The ball was doing plenty, and it was a bit up and down as well, and it was quite a quick wicket, and they had a very, very good seam attack. And myself and Jalo, we batted out, and we ended up winning the game by 4 wickets. So I can't even remember what we were chasing. I got 60, Ash got 40, but to be fair, we could have got out at any stage, both of us. But we luckily managed to hang on in there and see the game through to conclusion. So I think it's always easy to say, oh, when I got my highest score. It's not that. It's about your contributions, that these little bits that, when I was coming through and Dermot was captain and I sort of first played in that side, I think the one massive thing that I take away from my time as part of that team was it was the small contributions that actually are game-changing contributions that are the things that need to be respected. And yeah, of course, people getting double hundreds, 5 fours, 10 for whatever it is, that's amazing. But actually, when you come in and you're under the pump and somebody needs to stand up, and that's what it's all about. There was another one as well, and I think Mola spoke about it when you interviewed him a week or so ago. It was against Somerset when they got 500 in the first innings, and we ended up chasing it down against Mushy, and it was spinning at Edgbaston. And I came in and I was batting at number 8, I think, and myself and Mola got 200 not out, or 170 not out, and I got 40 not out in quite a short space of time. And and was there at the end. And I think these little contributions over even in the context of a high-scoring game, small contributions make a massive difference. So these are probably two of my most memorable ones, and ones that actually contributed to winning the game.
Molar's recollection of that game, because he said he didn't read Mushy for 1 minute, but he just swept him to oblivion.
Well, that was the thing. Mushy, you knew Mushy was always going to be challenging your pads, but if you can get your pads outside the line of the stumps, you've got half a chance. And Mushy used to appeal for everything. Whether you middled it for 4, he was still appealing for LBW. And it kind of worked against Mushy. Mola played him unbelievably in that. So I do remember Mola picked up an injury in that game. So there was myself, Mola, and Nick Knight was running for Mola. So the think tank, I remember I've got a photograph actually somewhere where the three of us are in the middle and talking about strategy. I don't know how much strategy was being talked. I think it was a lot of rubbish being spoken about, but we actually managed to see it through to conclusion. And Mola was amazing. But certainly something that I remember to this point in time.
Mola said he rather enjoyed having Knighty running for him, actually. What about your most memorable bowling performance then, Dougie?
For the Bears, geez, do you know what? That's a proper stretch. Most memorable bowling performance. Do you know what? It was probably against Yorkshire again, actually. Sort of early part of my career at Edgbaston, I got, I think it was 95. So we won the championship that year. 95, I got 4 for 20, 4 for 30. At the time, I didn't quite appreciate that getting 8 wickets in a game, 8 for 50 odd, was actually quite a good thing. I was just like, I was so happy to be involved and just running in and bowling. And the great thing about that is I know that I kind of knocked over, in the first thing, certainly I knocked over the top order. And that was, for me, that was always a really nice thing. You got Muntz, you got Glad, you got AD. You would expect these guys to knock over the top order. But when some little lad from Scotland sort of rocks up and actually manages to do a job for the team, I think that was pretty special. So that game definitely, as a bowler, it definitely stood out. There must be more, but it's a really good question, and it's tasking me at the minute.
It must have been, you mentioned a young lad from central Scotland. It must have been quite strange to just find yourself all of a sudden in a dressing room and sharing the ball with Alan Donald, Gladstone Small.
It was like, honestly, it was ridiculous. And I can't even now, like when I look back on the back of a career and you look back and you think, okay, well, I've done all right. I've had a reasonable career. You look back and sometimes you've actually got to pinch yourself and say, well, I can't actually remember. I can remember, but I can't believe I was that person in that environment doing stuff alongside some of these absolute legends of the game. To be taking the new ball alongside AD, I'm like, it was great because I remember 1997, Alan bowled amazing. He bowled brilliantly 95 and we won the championship. 97, he probably bowled as well, as quick as he's ever bowled. And I got more wickets than he did that season, championship wickets. But I know why, because everybody was like running scared from Al and they were trying to line me up and trying to have a hack at me. And I ended up, like, I got a bit lucky and kept nicking people off and stuff. But it wasn't me that was doing that. It was Alan that was doing that for me. And I think we very soon realised, I realised that, cricket was totally about your partnerships, whether you're batting and bowling, and actually just understanding that, when you're bowling as a team, and you're only as good as the guy at the other end. So that kind of resonated throughout my career.
Alan actually did one of these. He was brilliant for us a couple of weeks ago, and he was asked what his favourite end was in the world, and he said any ground where the wind was behind me or I was bowling downhill. And that makes me think you might have plugged away uphill and into the wind a few times.
And I've got the perfect I've got the perfect sort of face for that. Just poke myself through into the wind. I did a fair bit of bowling into the wind, but to be honest, I didn't mind that because I actually knew that the team, that was what the team needed. I was like, we all want to do well for ourselves and we all want to get a bit of a leg up in the right direction, of course. but you also realise that once you're sort of established in that dressing room, it's not about you actually making a name for yourself. It's about you making a name for the team, and actually, the team is only as strong as the weakest link. So if somebody's not prepared to do the hard yards at one end, obviously there's no point Alan bowling uphill into the wind. You've got the quickest bowler in the world at that time. He needs to be running downhill with the wind and free him up to just attack the opposition like he did do. So somebody had to do it the other end. And, I knew that it wasn't going to be me running downhill with the wind. So it was a pretty easy decision to make.
Actually, just leading on from that, you mentioned how the team ethic was so strong. Neville Skelding, thank you for the question. Neville says, how important, Dougie, was this to the success of the mid-90s team was the dressing room atmosphere? And does a bad atmosphere have a detrimental effect on teams' performance?
So, Neville, I'm going to say that the dressing room environment is the team. And you can hide behind skill, talent, ability, world class. Every single word you can put towards somebody who's brilliant, it doesn't make a good team. A good team is a good team. It's a team that just understands. It's a team that knows what they're good at, knows what they're not so good at. And if you're not so good at that, then you let somebody else cover your yards in that dynamic. Bob and Dermot, look, they both had flaws. If you speak to Dermot now, he'd probably tell you that he was, I don't know, Dermot might not tell you he had flaws, but he did have flaws, and as did Bob as well. But together, they made a brilliant package. They covered each other's shortfalls unbelievably well. And was the dressing room, was it all, happy slappy and we love each other? No, it wasn't. It wasn't. Of course not. There was little pockets. So you'd rather, yourself. You're probably friends with many people in the dressing room or at work or whatever. You'd rather go out for one guy, go out for a beer or dinner with one person as opposed to somebody else. And that was, when you put together in a dressing room environment, it's exactly the same thing. The one thing that brings you together is cricket. And when you're in the moment and when you are winning games of cricket, it's about winning games of cricket. It's not about the personality. And I think for me, that was just the epitome of just true professionalism that year. 94, 95 was just amazing. We all understood that all of us were weak in certain areas. We all understood what people were good at, and we let the people who are good at things to do the things they were good at, and vice versa. And that was true professionalism, I think. And I think, coming back to the question, the dressing room is your success. If you get a strong dressing room, a dressing room that just understands what winning is about, you've got a pretty good chance to actually make a massive difference on the game. I think you'll see teams that are star-studded not actually winning games of cricket, and it's for that very reason that they probably don't have that ability to gel together when they're put under the pump. And we managed to gel unbelievably well, and massive credit to Bob and to Dermot for having that foresight, but for all the senior players, Muntz, Glad, Mola, Neil Smith, for just Asif, for pulling that together and keeping it together for a long period of time. So it allowed us to get out the back end of the season as well as we did.
That's a great answer, Dougie. Now, the next question is an interesting one from Paul Burton. It's a very specific one, this, Dougie. How did you feel when you walked to the crease against Surrey at Guildford in 1994? Nervous, or were you thinking a great challenge?
Look, honestly, I had no idea I was playing. I travelled down in the car. I travelled down in the car with Dickie Davis and his wife. We stopped at Warwick Services. Dickie filled up his car full of petrol, and we were about to pull off. And then he realised his car was a diesel. So we got to Warwick Services. We had to call AA out to drain the tank, and then he had to fill it up. So it cost him a 200 quid just to get down. He was spewing. I had no idea I was playing in that game, none at all. Because you go to Guildford and you probably think, well, it's probably going to be two spinners. we had a very experienced seam attack. They were going to bowl the majority of the seam overs, and Neil Smith was going to definitely get into the game at some stage. So we were struggling. I think we were 126 for 8, and I strolled out at number 10. Welshie was there. Welshie had done really well in the first 2 or 3 games that he played, and it was like, well, this is just like playing a second team game where you've got 2 young lads at the crease. Look, if we're 120 for 8, the expectation on myself and him is actually pretty minimal, because if Brian Lara and Andy Moles and Paul Smith and all these guys can't score runs, well, the expectation on me and him is actually limited. And then Pop started to play some like great Cameron Cuffey run in and bowl and bouncer, and he'd like hit it into the road, and I was like, I want a bit of that, come on, bowl me a short ball, and I'd be like, boom, okay, and I'll jump on it as well. And all of a sudden, we started to sort of, it wasn't even about the game, it was just about us having fun in the middle, to a point whereby we actually probably got a little bit giddy. We got to, I think, 246 for 8. We put on 120 thereabouts, and then I had a hack at one and ended up nicking it, and probably just getting a little bit giddy. But what it did do is it a number of things. It actually, it got me to a situation whereby making my championship debut, I was like, actually, this is okay. I can do this. This is not way beyond me, which I think anybody who starts to play professional sport and they're making their first team debut, the biggest fear they probably have is, at any stage, are they good enough to do it? Actually, that settled me down pretty quickly. I didn't score 100 or whatever, but I got 50, and it was a match changing partnership that we put on. And second innings, Toosey then managed to burgle 6 wickets somehow. Alex Stewart caught down a leg side and bowled really well. You would never expect him to get 6 wickets. And then Moeller played brilliantly second innings, got a double 100. I think it was actually the slowest double 100 in county championship history. I don't know if it's still that, but it was at the time. And then it brought Neil Smith into the game, back into the game, but on a wicket that was spinning. And massive credit to whoever was selecting the team at the time, because it would have been really easy to play the extra spinner in Dickie and not play me. As it happened, I bowled very little in the game because all the other seamers bowled really, really well. But I'd like to think that myself and Welsh's contribution at the back end of the first innings allowed us to get back into the game, claw ourselves back in, and give the team something to cling on to. Because Surrey at that stage, they were just above us in the championship. They were top, and I think we were second or third. Had the game gone the other way, I would doubt at that stage in the season whether we'd probably have wrangled the position back into the game. But as far as being nervous, not at all. No, it was just an opportunity, nothing to lose.
Great stuff, Dougie. Another question from Carl Jordan. What gave you more satisfaction, winning trophies as a player or as a coach?
They both did. They both did. I think as a player, if I'm honest, you can probably make more of a contribution towards doing stuff. You can change games because of your absolute input into the game. But they're both slightly different. They're both involved in cricket and all that sort of stuff. But as a player, it's very in the moment. Once the team are prepared to go and play, it's pretty much them making the decisions as the game evolves, which is, I suppose, it's testament to where you get to as a coach. But they were both incredibly satisfying, but both very different in their own right. Sometimes as a coach, you sit there and like, I just wish I was out in the middle and actually physically doing that, but that's not what your role is. And sometimes as a player, you wish you were on the other side watching the game. But it's really, as a coach, coaching is really difficult because you know that once a game starts, your involvement in the game and the outcome of the game is actually quite limited. It's limited to your preparation, and as long as your preparation is right, then. But sometimes it's a really good question. Both brilliant, but both very different.
Just leading on from that, actually, got a question from Eli Z. Farn, who says, of course, as director of cricket, you brought the T20 Blast title to the Bears for the first time. And as he recalls, there were times early in that campaign when it looked like the Bears weren't even going to qualify. So that was a really great run that took you all the way, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, as a coach, that was right up there because, and if I'm honest, if you look at T20, the teams that start and get out the blocks unbelievably well generally are not the teams that go on and win the title. It's the team that they just kind of find the game at the back end of the group stages, and they come onto a game and actually they start to understand what it takes to win. So peaking at the right time is really important. I'm not saying you need to lose games to begin with, but actually coming into your game at the right time that's really, really important. And actually kind of planning for that is just as important as a coach. Yeah, there was times in 2015 where it was like, actually, or 2014 actually, it was like, yeah, if we lose this game, we're out, we're done and dusted. But we didn't. Somebody found a way to get themselves ahead of the game and give us an into the game. That was amazing. It actually took me back to 1994, where somebody always pulled something out of the bag, whoever it was, and it didn't really matter who it was. It was maybe somebody taking an amazing catch. I remember Tom Lewis taking an unbelievable catch into the sun right in front of the Holly stand, and it would have been really easy to drop the catch. If he dropped the catch, we lose the game. But he didn't. He took the catch. A young player making his way in the game. So things have to work for you as well. But that was phenomenal. But it was about just timing it right and actually making sure that once we got to the back end of the group stages, we knew what our method was. Which at the start of a tournament, you think you know what your method is, but it actually changes and it evolves game on game. So losing games to start with is not the end of the world, but coming into your game is really, really important.
And finals day itself, of course, was pretty special, I think, for everybody, wasn't it? The way the day built momentum-wise, polished off Surrey, and then went down to the very last ball, didn't it? Which Woksey didn't get hit for 6 from. Otherwise, it was years.
The thing is, if you look at that last over, there's a couple of balls. Woksey is an unbelievable cricketer and gets it into the hole really, really well. There's a couple of balls in there that he didn't quite get in, but on a different day they got out the park. But it wasn't that day. It was our day, and it was just phenomenal. Like I even remember the quarter final. I think we played Essex, and Woksey came in and played an absolute cameo, coming in and sort of carved it over backward point, through extra cover, over extra cover, and played unbelievably. I don't know what he got, probably 30 odd off about 10, 12 balls, and changed the whole momentum of the game. Woksey, just a really calm customer, but all the way through that season in 2020, there was so many people that stood up and actually contributed enormously to winning games of cricket. It was untrue. And that's what 2020 cricket is. Yeah,
got Kevin Peterson, didn't he? First ball up in the little moments like that.
Yeah, I mean, little things, small margins that sometimes they go one way and a different day they go a different way, and that contributes towards a change in outcome of the game. But fortunately for us, it went our way.
Thank you, Dougie. Next question from it's another. Oh, there was another Guildford-related one. That one slipped from my list. Michael Ratcliffe asks, who are the most impressive players you played with and against during your career? Now, that's a huge question, isn't it? Maybe a couple of each.
Wow.
Couple of batsmen, couple of bowlers. Most
impressive players. Okay, I'm going to say Ashley Giles. Quite limited in what he did. I mean, he's not somebody that absolutely rags at miles. He's not somebody that scores you double hundreds. He's not somebody who is Trevor Penny in the field. But as a package, he knew exactly what needed to be done every single day, and probably which is why he probably played as many games for England as he did. It would have been easy for England to overlook him, but they didn't, and there's a reason for that. So I'm going to say Ash, because he just had a grit and a desire to do as well as what he could with the ability that he had. And I'm not being unkind.
Job at the ECB, don't you, Dougie?
No, not at all. Honestly, I just want him to buy me a beer the next time I see him. I'm trying to be as kind as I can, but actually trying to be as honest as I can as well. Yeah, he made everything from what he had, and that was amazing. Alan Donald, yeah, he had phenomenal ability to bowl fast, but I think if you go back to the early part of his career, he didn't have an unbelievable ability to bowl a line and a length consistently. He was quick, but actually against good players, that means nothing. But what he did manage to do was he learned to develop himself into being a top bowler. Forget his pace. He was a really, really good bowler. Away from that, he did it every single day. And he did it with a smile on his face for the main part. He loved his team. He had a beer afterwards, which I'm not saying is the be-all and end-all, but he knew how to play the game. And as an overseas player, he was just phenomenal. There's been a lot of very good overseas players. He, as somebody that I played with, was just in a different class to anybody else. Just got it absolutely right. And it didn't really matter whether he was playing for South Africa or Warwickshire. He put in 100% every single time he had the ball in his hand. And for that, I would say he's right up there. Forget his pace and the fact it's Alan Donald. How he did his job was just amazing. Guys who've played against, where do you start? There's hundreds of them, you know. It would be easy to say, you know, the best ones in the world, you know, Satcher and Rahul Dravid and Steve Waugh and stuff like that. Do you know what? I actually don't know, because on a different day, everybody had their opportunity to be great. You know, Shane Warne, obviously, you play against Warne. Again, another one like AD. It didn't really matter if it was a championship game, a one-day game, or a test match, him playing for Australia. He was still giving everything he could for the team. And I think people who give everything for the team, I've got complete respect for, because it would be easy for a megastar not to do that. And you know, Alan Donald, Shane Warne, many other people, they did exactly that. They gave everything they could every single day.
Thanks, Dougie, and thank you, Michael, for the question. The other Guildford question has come to light, and it touches on the fact that you just mentioned a beer there sometimes after the game. And David Whittingham, hello, David. Thank you for joining us again. He says it's not so much a question, but a memory. The Friday night of the game at Guildford in 2004.
Oh, here we go. Where's this going?
A few of us, including your good self, ended up in a nightclub. Don't remember the name of the club. Might have had a few shandies. We still won the game on the Saturday evening. It was our last win in the championship that year on the way to becoming champions. It was a rather different culture in those days, I think, Dougie.
It was a little bit. But hi, David. How are you doing? Hope you're well. But what you need to remember is that it wasn't just a few of the Warwickshire guys. The whole Surrey team were there as well. So I think we thought that whilst they were there, and only a couple of us were there, it was probably wise to keep the whole Surrey team there, knowing that they were the ones that were going to have to, you know, bat to save the game the following day. So we thought it was time well invested in the championship season to keep them at the nightclub.
Absolutely, it was purgatory for you all, of course.
Of course.
William Baker, thank you for the question, William. Who was the best overseas cricketer you worked with at Warwickshire and why? I'm guessing you've almost answered that with AD.
Yeah, AD for honestly, like. But I'm going to say that Jeets, you know, like Jeets has been amazing, and actually separating AD and Jeets as a Warwickshire overseas player, it's actually really hard, because the records speak for themselves. A different time in life, but you can't argue against Jeetz's performances as a player. Like genuinely world class, genuinely world class. The same as AD. So these two guys would like totally stand out against the rest. Obviously AD, somebody that I played with all the way through, I kind of understood, and you're on the field with him as well, so you understand how he ticks. But Jeets as an overseas player, when I was coaching, just phenomenal. Both the records are ridiculous, and both of them deserve to go down as true Warwickshire absolute legends. Although one of them was an international legend, Jeets is absolutely, wholeheartedly a Warwickshire legend.
Yeah. Question, Dougie, from David Whitlock, who normally tries to get the Sky Blues into a question if he can. Evening, David. And his question, Dougie, is: you've played cricket just about everywhere where cricket is played in the world. You must have met some amazing, unusual cricketers and characters, but can you remember what sort of cricketer Dion Dublin was when you played with him at Warwick School in July 2011?
Well,
no, might be the
it sounds like he probably remembers that more than what I did. But Dion Dublin in Warwick School, I think that must have been a Lord's Taverners game that Neil Smith organised. I'm going to guess. The fact that I can't remember how good a cricketer Dion Dublin was probably will answer the question for you.
Okay, Dougie, next one is back to another one from Carl Jordan, an interesting question. You were coached by two superb coaches at Warwickshire, in Bob Woolmer and John Inverarity. Could you compare them?
No, not at all. Bob was somebody who, just an amazing guy, pushed the boundaries of what cricket was at that time. Challenged everything, challenged the norm, and asked all of us as young players to challenge ourselves, to challenge the norm. He would always show us that there was a different way to do stuff, and he thought there was a different way to do stuff. And Dermot reinforced that with our training and our practice. He was a true pioneer, and genuinely, like, if anybody has ever been involved in a cricket capacity with Bob, it was probably the most amazing time that you probably spend with somebody enthusing and talking about cricket. Invers, exactly the same, but completely poles apart from Bob. Bob loved the fact that it was, he was the one challenging the norm, and he liked that sort of the way things were that way. Invers, when he first came to Warwickshire, I honestly, for the first 3 months, I had no idea. I didn't know. He could have been the dressing room attendant, because his coaching was actually, it wasn't limited. He just didn't do very much. But I kind of realized after about 3 months that he said very little, but the stuff he did say was actually really pertinent. It was just absolutely on point. Brilliant. A brilliant tactician. Somebody who was a complete, he just loved the game wholeheartedly. He, in his own way, loved to challenge the norm. He was a proper nuggety Australian fighter, wanted to win at all cost. And really, as a headmaster, he just wanted to win the game. He didn't really care how he won the game, but he still played within the spirit of the game. It was just about, you've got to be strong, you've got to be tough. And after 3 months, I totally got Invers, and he was unbelievable in conjunction with Nick, which it's always the way it works. When you've got a successful team, you've got a captain and coach who work really well together. A bit like Dermot and Bob, it was like Invers and Nighty, and they worked really well together and actually took the team forwards. A team that had done okay without doing really well, and actually taking it to a championship winning team with the team that we had was phenomenal. because we weren't full of world-class players, but we just had a way and a style of playing the game and a belief in ourselves and each other that actually was going to take us in that next stage in the game. So both very different coaches, both brilliant in their own way, but very, very different.
Actually, that answer has just led us on really nicely to the next question, Dougie, which is from Carl Jordan again. And he says, which of your 3 championship wins, I think you're the only fella to be involved in 3 for the Bears, 94, 95 in 2004, which of them gave you the most satisfaction and why? I guess they were quite different, because in 94 and 95, you just blew teams away, didn't you? And in 2004, you just ground them down.
Yeah, we absolutely right. Great. I think, I think 94, I was a young player making my way in the game. And I know the biggest thing for me is about making contributions and actually being respected for the contributions that you make in the game. For me, you don't have to be scoring, 1 million runs a year and taking 1,000 wickets a season. It's about, when you get to a stage in the game where it needs somebody to do something, I would like to think I was somebody that could kind of do that. However, 2004 for sure, I know that I made an enormous impact consistently over the course of the season. 2003 I had a really good year with a bat. I'd coached Namibia, and I had sort of challenged in my coaching. I challenged myself to sort of think about how I played. So you're giving messages to players, and you're asking yourself the question: am I doing that myself? And sometimes I wasn't doing the stuff that I was asking the players to do. So I was like, okay, I needed to revisit where my game was at. 2003 I did really well with the bat, particularly. 2004 that continued, and I think 2004 for me was, out of the 3 championships, was the one that I really felt that I sort of contributed majorly to. Scoring the runs that I did, taking the wickets that I did, and it's probably what you want from your senior player. A bit like the team that I first started in '94. You've got senior players who that are actually going to stand up, and their bank is for performance. You can have young players coming in and patting themselves out around the spine of the side. And I like to think that maybe 2004 I was one of the integral parts of the spine of the side, and allowing young players, Nick Warren, Ian Westwood, these guys to come into the side and actually just, whether they did well or didn't do well, it didn't really matter.
That's I do recall 2004, Dougie. Even though there was a lot of runs scored, and that was really the linchpin of the win almost. There were quite a few times when the Bears were something like 100 for 4, and it was the likes of yourself and Brad Hogg, I think, and Frosty. It was the middle and lower order that really did pile on some runs that year.
Yeah, we used to call it stoking the hornet's nest, because you lose a couple of wickets up front, and then people would come in down the order and actually just go harder and harder and harder. I do remember a game, I think I'm right in saying it was at Southgate against Middlesex, and we were struggling. I think Nofke had got some wickets. We might have been 100 for 5 or something, and I think I'm right in saying that we declared on about 500 for 8 or 9. Ash got runs, Neil Smith got runs, Frosty got runs, and it was just, that was kind of the way that we played a game. Down the back end, everybody was capable of scoring runs, and that's kind of what we wanted to do. We wanted to make sure that first innings runs we maximise. We look to get 400 every single time, because if you get 400, you're not losing the game, and more often than not, scoreboard pressure will win you games. It's not the flashiest way to play your game, but that was our strategy. If you can outscore the opposition batting first, then you put yourself in a very healthy scoreboard position, and it only takes the opposition to get it wrong for a short passage of play, and you win the game. And that was kind of what we did. And we did that, I think, of the games that we played, I think 10 or 11 times we got maximum batting points batting first, which I think in any year, any team, is a phenomenal achievement.
Question from Chris Brind, Dougie. This is another test for your memory. It's a specific innings. Thanks for the question, Chris. Which is, I saw a glimpse, Dougie, of your one-day 78 not out at Trent Bridge in 1995. in the Pat Murphy film. Can you tell us more about it, please?
Yeah, it was the flattest wicket I've ever played on in my life. It was like, I couldn't believe. When I got out there, I was like, okay, this is just. I was batting number 4, I think, and which was great because actually you got a chance as an all-rounder to go and just kind of free yourself up and just do what you did. And I remember going out to bat, and I was like, this was just the best wicket I've ever batted on. And it was like, well, okay, well, I wasn't somebody at that stage who was probably capable enough to take the game right to the back end of the game. But I do remember on that occasion, I actually managed to do that. And I think that's, it was just amazing because, again, that's the first time I'd actually had a chance to win the game with the bat by making a significant contribution, with regards to weight of runs and volume of runs in the game, and actually still be there at the end. Because normally I'd chuck it away and, leave it to somebody else to score the winning runs or something. I'd do all the hard work and throw it away. But that was the first time I actually managed to get myself to that point whereby I actually managed to be there at the end and sort of walk off, sort of holding your bat up, knowing that you've done a fairly major job. But it was the best wicket you ever played. I'd back anybody watching this right now to go out and go and score runs on that pitch because it was just beautiful.
Well, you fellas are often a bit modest. Any time you talk to Dennis Amiss about one of his beginnings, he insists it was the best batting wicket ever, but I'm sure there was some skill involved as well.
Yeah, well, there might be a bit of skill, but there was probably a lot of luck as well.
Very different question from Philip Hunter. How can we encourage more cricket in state schools? Have you got thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think people just need to enjoy cricket and actually be and just want cricket to develop. There's so many good coaches who are involved. They don't need to be coaching elite cricket. They don't need to be coaching in public schools, whatever. I think cricket is a funny one because the perception is that cricket is a difficult, complex game to coach, and therefore people back off from coaching it because they don't have the skill set to actually develop the game. Cricket is a very simple game. There's 2 sets of stumps, 2 bats, and a bunch of players with a ball, and that is it. And you can do whatever you want with that environment. If you are interested in making something competitive, which for me, school is about you have to be competitive. Life is about winning and losing. Okay, that's life. School needs to be a little bit about winning and losing. In the playground, away from lessons, it's about winning and losing. And I think lessons, if I'm honest, need to reinforce the fact that it's about winning. It doesn't need to be done in a harsh, callous way and poking fun at the guy who's not very good. But actually, there's so many people who don't need to be brilliant players, but they can actually be brilliant, integral parts of the game. And I think, cricket needs to be sort of reinforced and really sort of promoted. It's not that technical a game, okay? It's just give people the very rudimentary equipment and they will go and make it competitive. As long as somebody can oversee what is actually happening, I think, if I'm honest, that is the best way. That was the way I learned my cricket. It wasn't in the classroom. It was away from the classroom in a controlled way that made it competitive, that gave you skills, that allowed you to try and compete against somebody who you knew was probably better than you, but you were hell-bent on trying to defeat at some stage. And when you did, it was really empowering. And I think that's how you overcome state school cricket. Just let them play, let people play. It doesn't need to be so structured and coach, the cover drive. Look, just let people play. Find a reason to let people play and enjoy and be competitive. And I promise you, if you do that, you'll get players coming out the other side being incredibly good first-class international players.
Good stuff, Dougie. Question from Michael Dawes. Thank you, Michael. Should all players, management, staff and the new CEO at Warwickshire be expected to remove all facial hair in the cause of COVID-19?
I don't know. Good luck to Stuart as well. Good luck to the new CEO. Congratulations on Neil and what he's achieved over the past number of years. But good luck to Stuart. I'm sure he will take a great club even and further down the line as to where it is at the moment. And let's not forget, like, we're all pretty lucky to be part of Warwickshire, because it is an amazing club, and I'm sure it will go from where it is at the moment, which is in a very, very good place, to somewhere even better. Facial hair, I actually don't care. I don't care. Listen, if you're churning out commercial income, if you're churning out runs, wickets, you're a good guy in the dressing room, you can have as long a facial hair as anybody. It doesn't really bother me one iota.
That's a good answer, Dougie. Now, Carl Jordan asked one question here, which is very interesting. As head coach at Warwickshire, in hindsight, is there anything you would have done differently? And I'm thinking, as you were head coach for 4 years, there might be something somewhere along the line.
A whole bunch of stuff, and I think that's part of your development as a person, as a coach. There's a whole bunch of stuff I would have changed. I would have been much tougher year one, and it's very difficult sometimes when you take over. Normally, when you take over an environment, you're taking over because it's a dysfunctional environment. That wasn't the case for me. I was taking over an environment that was a winning environment. It was very healthy, with a bunch of players that still had, an opportunity to make a massive sort of way in the game. So that was quite tricky, actually, taking over that environment. And sometimes the perception is, well, you don't change very much because actually it will look after itself. I think what I should have done year one is just shaken up the whole thing and actually changed it and just challenged it more. It's easy in hindsight, and now you're really you're comfortable where you're at and stuff, and you've reflected on what's happened. I would have shaken it up massively year one. Year two, we did really well. Year three, we did okay, but we kind of just floundered a little bit towards the back end of the season. We were relatively successful. I do think maybe, could we have been more successful? I don't know, because actually we were relatively successful through that period. But we had some really good players, senior players, who were sort of all becoming senior together. And that's a difficult one as well. You need to get young players in, but actually, do you sort of take away from the guys that can go and do the job for you today, tomorrow, the next day, by just playing somebody who's not quite as maybe not going to make such an impact in the game? I don't know, but I certainly would have been. I would do it very differently had I had my 4 years again.
Another question from Eli Z. Farn, Dougie. What was it like playing in England's victorious team in Sharjah? That was a pretty eclectic squad given in England's previous ODI squads, and should that squad have stayed together a bit longer, perhaps?
Okay, so answer that bit first. Yeah, I think they probably should have done. I think, we went to the West Indies after winning Sharjah, and we got the wrong end of tosses and pitches and all that sort of stuff. That series, we lost 4-1. We could quite easily have won that series 4-1 the other way around, but it just didn't work out that way. And then it was, at the end of that series, it was like all changed. I think it was South Africa that toured in '98, and it was a very different. They went back to bowlers, to batters, and went away from the all-rounders type thing, which is fine. That's the decision that was made, and I would love to have seen that squad of players get a chance to properly evolve together. I think you've seen, over the course of the last sort of 12, 15 years, maybe central contracts and having a core group of players actually developing together, just you can see what they actually do manage to achieve on the back of understanding themselves and each other in that environment a little bit better. So I would love that to have, been allowed to evolve a little bit more. But getting back to Sharjah, it was just phenomenal, really. I made my debut against India, and they had all the great and the good, Sachin, Ganguly, all of them. They're all playing, and to be part of that team that won a fairly scrappy, low-scoring game was phenomenal. And then actually to be somebody who actually made a bit of a contribution in the next couple of games was amazing, really. Again, come back to this, this little kid from this little part of Scotland who's now playing for England, on the international scene. It was again, and you pinch yourself, and you actually, I even look back now and think I can remember it, but I don't see myself as being that person in that environment. And it's a really strange sort of a really strange feeling when you kind of you take yourself out of the environment and look into it, and you're like, what was that actually me doing that? An amazing group of guys. Again, it was a dressing room that understood what it took to win. It was a dressing room that actually they knew they had shortfalls. The egos were very minimal, like no egos. Everybody had a role to play. It was pretty clear what people's roles were, and people backed each other, knowing that over the course of a tournament they would get things wrong, but actually a lot of times they get things right. And I think if you support people and actually get behind them, there's more chance that people will get things right than get things wrong. And actually, you could say we were, ragtag and bobtails, and we had some pretty bloody good players. You look at the players that were in that team. You think of, Alex Stewart. You think of Graham Thorpe, Graham Hick. There's three guys that are world class. So they were world class at the time, and still were world class. When you look back at England at that time. So phenomenal players, but amazing to be part of it. And it was just a phenomenal trip, because England had never won anything, and until they won the T20 World Cup, they still hadn't won anything to that point in time. And I watched Bumble's sort of stuff, and he was sort of reminiscing really well about the time in Sharjah and how sort of how good that trip was, and how important it was for him as a coach.
Just one final question, Dougie. It's been brilliant stuff, and thanks to you and all the members who've sent in questions. I think the question actually is from me, Dougie. I'm sure everybody would be interested. What are you up to now, and what might the future hold for Dougie Brown?
Okay, so we're obviously in Dubai. I'm not coaching the UAE anymore, but we love it here. We really like it. It's a great place to be. It's a great place to bring up a young family. And there are lots of opportunities out here. So I'm busy sort of working towards setting something up. Given that, obviously the world's in a very funny place at the moment, and away from this environment, things would have been sort of going as we speak. But things are probably on hold until September. So as of September, we've set up a company with myself and so a friend of mine. We've set up a company here, and we're going to be looking to help support sport in and around the UAE. That some of that's going to be people coming to UAE, going out of UAE, but ultimately it's going to be about bettering opportunities for people playing sport in the UAE, which is, for me, that's really important. Without having an opportunity, I certainly would never have got a sniff of playing cricket for Warwickshire. And it's certainly, me just getting a chance to go and showcase myself at Warwickshire made a massive difference to me and my whole life. I would never be here now without, Bob Cottam, Neil Aberley giving it the thumbs up to a cheeky letter that I wrote to ask for a trial. And I think, there's many talented people here in lots of different sports codes that probably could do the same thing. They just need a bit of a leg up and a bit of direction. And I think, that's one of the things that we're looking to try and achieve, that if we can do that and make a difference to people's lives here through sport, then I'll be really happy.
Well, I'm sure everybody connected to the Bears wishes you all the best, Dougie. Neil, do you want to come in and just say a word or two?
Yeah, thanks, Brian, and thanks for your fantastic questions as usual, and thanks to all the members for sending those in. Doug, it's great to see you. Really is good to see you, and it's fantastic to hear that you and the family are doing so well in Dubai. So again, thanks for your time. It's really good to hear your thoughts and your memories about the game. I know how incredibly proud you are to be a Bear, and it's great that the members can have some time with you and hear your views, which is, as always, are very honest very modest and incredibly enthusiastic. So thanks, Dougie. It's been a real pleasure to spend a bit of time with you again. So thanks again.
Thanks, Neil, and thanks, guys, as well, and all the best. So obviously, it's interesting times for everybody at the moment. We just wish everybody all the very best as and when the season does actually start. If it does start, we'll be watching. We watch everything, live streaming and all that sort of stuff. And just because we're here doesn't mean that we don't actually keep an eye on what's happening. We know exactly what's going on, and we wish you all the very best. And Neil as well, wish you all the very best in your new role at the ECB as and when you start. Is that an ECB office you're in at the moment, or is that?
No. This is the cubby hole at home.
Listen, all the very best, and thank you to the members as well. Thanks for all your support over the years. I'm sure there's a number of people that are watching in now who heckled me, got frustrated by me, supported me all the way through my career. But thank you very much. It means a massive amount to me that people were there for me in my career, and long may that continue for the next Dougie coming through at Warwickshire. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks again, Doug. And Brian, Tom, and Matt, thanks again for organising the forum, and we look forward to doing another one again, I think, next week.
That's right, Neil. Dougie, thank you so much for your time. It's been a joy to catch up with you, as always. Next, and thank you to all the members for joining us, of course. Next Thursday, it's a slightly different tack. We're going to come right up to date. Joining us at 6 p.m. next Thursday will be the current coaching team, Jim Troughton, Graham Welsh, Ian Westwood and Tony Frost. So please do get your questions to us for them, not necessarily about their work as coaches today, but about their playing careers as well. Anything you'd like to ask them, do get your questions to us. And on behalf of the Bears, everybody stay safe and take care, and we'll see you next Thursday at 6.